I don't know about you guys, but I am so sick and tired of all the podcasts that are 10 steps to a better life, 7 steps to success. Stop giving out so much advice and tell more stories. What is going on, guys? This is the Empowered People Podcast, where each and every week we're going to tell, share, and listen to stories that are meant to motivate us to action, to motivate us to movement. We believe that so much success, opportunity, education is only coming when you're willing to get up and move. As always, each and every Thursday, we're trying to shine the light on the people that are making Kansas City brighter. And I have, and so has the entire crew here, Matt, Aaron, and Brett. They have been so excited to get Emily and Dave of Limitless Brewing in here to talk about craft brewing, all things starting a business. They started a brewery, what it's like to be a for-profit company with a nonprofit heartbeat, what it's like to be on the news and have so much fame thrust on them at the very beginning and have so many fans. And guys, we're just so anxious to tell you more about them, hear their story, and hear about all things beer. So if you do not like beer, this might not be the episode for you. Listen to a different podcast. I don't know what to say. But anyways, Dave and Emily, thanks a ton for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah. So guys, I mean, a lot of people, a lot of listeners probably drink beer. And if I asked everybody kind of where did your love for beer start, a lot of people are going to start in, 7th, 8th, 9th grade with Milwaukee's Best or Natty Light or something disgusting like that. So we don't want to hear when did you first taste a beer, but when did your love of craft beer kind of start? How did that begin?
So the first time we ever went to a craft brewery was in Charleston, South Carolina. And we were there on vacation, and he had been reading about these craft breweries, and he was like, let's go try this one. And we were with his brother and his wife. We were like, yeah, we'll do that. That sounds good. And so we put the address in Siri, and we pull up, and it says, your destination is on the left. We're like, okay, well, there's like an empty old Kmart and like this body shop repair that looked like no cars had been moved in like 100 years. So there were like cars everywhere. We're like, okay, I don't understand. Like, where are we at? So there's an alleyway. So I go, just turn and go down the alleyway. So we go down this alleyway, and in the back is like part of the old car shop. There's like 8 garage doors, and they're just rolled up, and they are just brewing beer right there, all picnic table seating. And we were like, what in the world have we found right now? It was called Holy City, and it was amazing. Like, we sat there all afternoon, played games, drank, just had a good time. And then we were hooked, like right away. We were hooked to the craft beer.
How old were you when that happened? Do you remember?
Oh, that was just 6 years ago.
I'm thinking like 2016, like time like really goes fast. So it could have been a lot earlier than that, but I don't know.
Had to be
four or 5. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Maybe 6 years ago. And it was just great seeing like people from all different backgrounds, like, and it kind of lends to like the space we now have. It's kind of out of the way, kind of hidden. It's been called like a Johnson County speakeasy, but once people find it, they have a tendency to come back, and it's kind of very similar to their setup.
So, yeah, so I mean, that's really cool that you say that, because I remember the first time, so I know this isn't the exact same, but I remember the first time I was introduced to like craft coffee, like pour over and all this kind of stuff. And when I walked in and everyone kind of looked at me, I had that kind of horrible feeling of like showing up to school in your underwear, like that dream, and literally just turned around and ran out. Like, I know it's so weird, like I love coffee, but like there was this feeling of like, I can't come to you. And you're exactly right. Whether it's your brewery or a lot of craft breweries, you go there and it's extremely welcoming and hospitable and things like that. And any reason why you think that is? Or
we see that look on people's face a lot, I think, when they come in for the first time, like especially someone that, you'll see them standing at the door like, what have I walked into? And if we're not busy, I'll go over and be like, hey, how's it going? I see you've never been in before. This is how it works. You share a table, that kind of thing. Now, when we're busy, unfortunately, can't do that. But you see that look, and it's like you just want to make sure that people feel welcome in our space. I think that's part of our thing. the community thing is we want people to come in, enjoy, and feel welcome and not be scared to say, what have I just walked into? And I'm leaving now, because they're overwhelmed by it.
Yeah, no, I think you guys do a great job at that. So you were on vacation when you came back. Did you kind of start looking for local breweries here in Kansas City? What kind of was that? Or did you just think like, oh, that's just must be an East Coast thing and it can't exist here? Or what was kind of that come back to the Midwest for you?
I mean, we certainly love the East Coast breweries, like North Carolina, Charleston. A lot of our influences came from that. There's a lot of those breweries are very family based. They're in neighborhoods, and it's just a different vibe. It's people seem to stay up later, stay out longer. It just seems like a more laid back environment. One of the breweries that we kind of mimic that's no longer in business, called Bain Brewing, did family meals, and it was free food every Sunday, and it was just something that we continue to now try to do with occasionally having free jerk chicken, something that we did in our driveway. Like, hey, let's have. Nothing's, I don't know, seems more American than having a meal and beer with a complete stranger and able to talk about something completely different than you normally ever would. Like when we went to Walnut River, we were talking to the city health inspector, and you think you'd be talking about health codes, and it was just a pleasant evening of two strangers. And I think that's what craft beer is. It's not a dividing thing. You can come from all different backgrounds. In our tap room, it's all ages from toddler to maybe 80. I mean, we're not IDing everyone, so it's hard to tell. But I mean, all different backgrounds. They all have different knowledge of things. There's people that come in there that know way more about beer than I do, or ever will. But for some reason, a lot of those people that are super smart about it like what we're doing. We appreciate what they're doing. One of the things we never thought would happen is so many people thank us for being open. And like, you're like, no, thank you for coming in. And it's still like, thank you. And how they'll bring their families in and maybe spend more money on food for the kids than actual beer consumed. And we don't have a kitchen or anything. Half the time it's not a food truck. It's salsa and chips, but like they're having a good time. And it's like how we've talked about, like the nights of like, there's lots of sleepless nights or short sleep nights, and getting out of the brewery at 10 o'clock, talking for 2 hours of what we need to do to push forward, to make sure we can make the payments, to make sure we can make the payroll for our brewer so we can keep our home. And just when they say thank you, it just means so much. It like re-energizes you, and you never would expect, being a for-profit business with a non-profit attitude, that they're going to say thank you, because everyone always, one of the things like we talked about earlier about the pricing, like, hey, we want to make sure people can afford this, that we never seem that we're taking more value from you than we're possibly giving you.
No, that's amazing. Pardon me. That's amazing. Be sure to keep that mic by your face whenever you turn your head and you talk to Emily. And you're like, I love when you guys turn and look at each other, because it's almost like you're reminding each other, like, this is why we're doing it. It's effing harder than we possibly could imagine. We knew it was going to be hard. I mean, we know if there's ever been an entrepreneur that has gone, hey, I'm going to do the hard things. I remember coming in and seeing you saw cut concrete floor, and not just a little bit, like 30, 40, 50 yards of concrete, and then being like, are you going to pay someone to like bust that up and carry it away? And you're like covered in head to toe in like concrete mud, and you're like, nah, I think I'm just going to do it. And it's just like, you can tell his attitude. He's not like this rah, get it done guy. He's just like this, I'm going to man the hell up and take care of this. And like 2 days later we come and it's all gone. And it's just like that steady, stable workhorse, that like the little engine that could, like, I'm not going to stop. I know. So where did that resolve happen? Because, okay, so, I love craft beer. Never once in my mind have I thought, I wonder if I could make this. So you come back and you kind of find some places here. Like, when's the first time that you brew? I mean, I've heard about college people brewing beer in like their toilet dorm rooms and stuff. Yeah, no, that's in prison. In prison, you brew like whiskey in the toilet. But then,
it's disgusting.
Hey man, if you're in prison, you probably got to do whatever you got to do to get some whiskey or something. That's for a different podcast interview. I'm not going to name that person that I've heard that from. But when do you brew beer at your house?
So basically, It sat for almost a good year, just not going to really any other breweries, I think. And then thinking back, I was actually on the deck at this point, pretty discontent working at the U.S. Postal Service, just because they cared more about the almighty dollar than the person. I very few managers really knew who my name was. I showed up to work all the time, did above and beyond, I think, and I cared totally about the customer, and they could care less about the people that worked there. So at that point, Emily's friend had started up her own business and was traveling the country doing like speaking, coaching type things. And I was like, wow, this is really possible. You can do this. And so I thought back to like what really made me happy, and it was going to that vacation with Emily and Josh and Danny. And I was like, you know what? I like those people there just seem super happy, and it brought the idea for us to do this beer blog, and you can talk more about that.
Ooh, started with a beer blog. Didn't know about this.
Yeah, so the first thing we did was we were like, okay, well, let's start just writing a blog and learn more about the beer, right? Let's learn more about craft beer, and we can do that through the blog. So we started a blog, bought a website, came up with a name. And
What was the name?
Growlers and Stickers. Yep. So brewery stickers are a thing. It's like you go to a brewery, you get a sticker. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's a thing. And so we did that. We did the blog, and we would just, this is so random, like we would just write these brewers and be like, hey, we want to learn more about your story. And never once did that one person not contact us back. So we would, if they would contact us back, then we would be like, okay, we're going to come out, and we would schedule it on our vacations. We would go to probably 5 or 6 breweries at a time, no matter where they were. Like we would make the round trip in a general area, and we would go to the breweries and we would write a blog about what they were doing, what they had going on, how they started. And we did that for about a year and a half. And then the idea to start our own brewery came from that.
And so would you kind of write just one blog post about each location? Would you talk about the people or the beer or both?
Both. Yeah. We would talk about their story, about the entrepreneur's story and why they got into it. We would also talk about the beer as well, but we would generally start with new brewers because they were the most eager to tell their story. And so we would start with them, and then we would generally follow up because they'd be either just opening or getting ready to open. And then we would follow up a couple months later and say, how did it go? What did you learn? What's the best thing about it? And we would do a lot of that via email and things like that. But that's how it. And then we were like, okay, let's open a brewery. We can do this.
Yeah, just.
But it has to start with making beer.
Like
right?
It was just building the groundwork and like falling in love with like the people that were doing this, like living vicariously through like a 24-year-old guy that lives in Arkansas, and then inviting you down to see the opening of it, and like to see people's raw emotions, and say like I was like this small little part of it because I would dig in through all their Facebook page, LinkedIn, anything I could find about these breweries, and like anyone that was willing to give their time, I wanted to make sure that I knew everything possible I could gather for them. And a lot of times they'd be impressed. And like, I was like, well, if you're going to give me a chance to talk to you, I want to make sure I've at least done my homework. And like Derek from New Province, and a guy named Robert Bostic in New Orleans that had never met him before, was 24, 25, starting a brewery in the French Quarter, and like always, something's happening in New Orleans, and has to park a mile away. The building has no light. Over one shoulder, he's got the shop light. Another shoulder, he's got the beer. And there exactly on time, soaked in sweat. And still, I mean, I met him one time, like I think I've seen him 3 times in my life, and he's the first person we're going to have guest brew with us because I'll never forget what he did for me.
It was literally like 100 degrees in New Orleans. It was like August. And he's like got all this stuff on, and he had things to do, and he stood there and talked to us for, I don't know, 2 hours. We drank beer and just, yeah. And then the next time we just randomly, we went to New Orleans. We told him we were coming, but we went in. He didn't know we were coming that day, and he's like, oh, you guys got to give me a hug. And he was so excited to see us, and it's been a great relationship. On the flip side, it's also helped us in our business because I could email him and say, hey, Robert, here's a problem we're having. He's like, okay, try this or that. Or it's been a great resource for us so that you're not just tied into one network of people. You have multiple people you can contact that are doing different things across the country and say, okay, what about this? What about that? And get other people's input.
Yeah, like we had lost buildings through landlord issues or not getting funding, and people we had physically talked to for an hour had been through it and had persevered. We'd seen them make beer, and you would just kind of roll with it. Go like, this has happened before. These people are successful. They're making good beer. So it built up the confidence. And then from there, my brother's also an owner, Steve, and then our other partners, Darren Worthington. And so he kind of took on the thing of going more towards the home brewing side. I, from the beginning, wanted to be more the management side, work the tap room, kind of be a jack of all trades, master of none type thing. I mess up a lot of learning, never working in the brewery industry and jumping into 41, but at least we thought financially, business plan wise, through talking to other brewers and talking to other small businesses, that we were prepared to do that. And we did open up on time, which is a rarity. We also were under $200,000 on our build out. And had we not, turned our vacations into educational things, I believe those twos would have happened. And it's also why we love the industry so much, is we were able to get into it by these other people. And every single day you got to go in there, at least we do, saying we have to make the best beer possible, because these people, so many of them have, put their whole livelihood on the line. They've quit jobs like I have. And we had that opportunity for me to do that and for us to have the brewery because other people were willing to do that and were willing to pave the road for us. And whenever and most people are like that, it's just an industry that's very respectable. A lot of people, barely make any money. I mean, they make some, but that's not six figures unless you're in a major beer. But they're in there, they're happy. They enjoy what they're doing. At least most do. I mean, a lot would depend on your boss and things like that, but it's very rare to ever find someone that's in the craft beer industry that's just so bitter at life compared to a lot of people that come into our brewery. I've had a long day, and we get to be providers of joy, much like, Empowered Electric. You guys do restaurants and things like that. Where do you go for joy? No one's ever happy when the lights aren't on, but they don't think about it when they're on,
Yeah.
I mean, just like the beer, you charge with our pricing, you want to make sure that they feel like I got a good deal. I got a fun night. I mean,
Yeah. Well, and I think what we were talking about, which I got a tickle in my throat, so I'm going to open one of these. I'm going to tell you right now, my favorite of all time is this raspberry blonde. I don't know if it's available right now, but if it's not, shame on you guys. It should be.
We just made another blonde that has a pink guava in it, so it still has a fruity blonde flavor, but we try to change it up.
Love it. Anyways, so yeah, they do sell 4-packs in their tap room. You need to go check it out. But so one of the things that you were saying that I appreciated so much, and it's something that I want to do in the construction industry that's not really, it doesn't really happen, is that sense of we're all competition, but we're all rooting for each other at the same time. You know what I mean? I'm sure if you went to a beer conference where they were testing the best beers, you want to win, but it's not like you don't want that person to fail and be horrible. You want to be the best version of yourself and do the best you can. But at the same time, there's that healthy camaraderie. And that's what I hear you guys saying about. So, are there tricks of the trade that you guys share, when it comes to brewing and recipes and how to get the best IPA or get the best sour,
Well, I think the best thing that we learned from the blog was what to do and what not to do, right? I mean, it truly was our educational experience. So the one thing that we learned was you have to hire a professional brewer. And we thought, okay, well, we can do the tap room, right? None of us have ever worked at a bar before. We've never worked at a restaurant where you're but if the beer isn't good, we don't have any reason to hire anyone, right, to work the tap room, because you got to have good beer. So we knew that we had to hire a brewer with experience. So that's why we hired Mike, because that was our number one thing, was the beer.
So where is Mike from? Because he's got a beautiful accent.
He's from Liverpool.
Yeah, so how did you guys, so I want to come here. I want to talk about this, but like, I feel like you're jumping over. I picture there is a moment where you're like going to Hy-Vee and buying a bunch of random crap and pouring it into a big bucket on your stovetop. I know it had to have happened. And Emily comes home and is like, what the heck? Or is like, because isn't it sticky and messy? And I don't want to overstep, because that's where me and Matt stumble across you. It's on Instagram. We're following along. We're following along on Instagram. We go to an open house, and I'm like doing the whole like looking on Instagram to see if that's you guys, like looking for a profile picture. And it's like, oh, we got to go talk to them. And it was such a fun experience. And then going to your house, I mean, let's not jump over that. I mean, it's a cool part of your story. So.
It was definitely an important part of our story, I think. So Darren is scientific in nature. That's just who he is. And that's part of the reason that we brought him on, is because that is how his brain works. And so we actually started brewing at Darren's house. Lucky me. We started brewing in his garage. And then, so the last Saturday of September, every fall, Overland Park has an Overland Park Day, one day, and it's in the park across the street from our house. So we had all this home brew, and we were like, what are we going to do with this? All this beer that we're testing and seeing, can we really do this, make the beer? And so Dave's like, he's the mastermind, by the way. He's like, well, we got 20,000 people walking in front of our driveway in 3 weeks. Let's open the door and give away some beer. So that's how it started. We just opened the garage doors and started pouring free samples for everybody. But we also did it because we wanted to establish our name before we just opened a brewery. We wanted to get our name out there and have people try it and know who we were before that.
Yeah, it was like the least risky. Obviously, some people that were, part of ownership were concerned that they would say that the beer could possibly not be good enough. And I go, well, at least we're in a friendly space and we're only out, a couple $100 compared to if we have a building and hundreds of $1,000s worth of equipment. And surprisingly, like, people came across from the park and, started sampling the beer, and we're like, where can we buy this? And we're like, nowhere possible. So that helped build up confidence. So then the next month was Veterans Day. We did a thing with Veterans Community Project. Since all the beer was free, all the merchandise people bought, and if they wanted to donate to Veterans Community Project, then they could. And then we just would do it monthly and start to partner with Johnson County Suicide Prevention. We did a school supply drive for the local school next to where the brewery is. That's I don't know the classification, but a lot of them are subsidized meals and things like that. And as far as that thing, we wanted to put as much of the dollars towards something. So we are always looking for things that have no, really overhead. It basically goes to where the money can do the most good, not to someone's salary. We just started running as a business, just started brewing as much as possible. We were brewing Saturday and Sunday, and monthly, putting it out there on Facebook, inviting people that had never been. Other people would come back constantly. We would be in the garage pouring beer. People that we had never met were inside our house, using the bathroom or taking pictures of our dog on Instagram. And we're like, that's weird. That's our dog on Instagram. And we've never met them before. But it went back to the whole concept of back to the Carolinas and that of hey, this is normal. This is what America should be. We should be able to be respectful to each other, and meet different people and trust that, I wouldn't advise anyone to let a complete stranger probably into your house, but nothing was ever stolen. We got so much more in return.
Oh, it was a blast. I think we came to the one where it was the school supply drive. And I mean, just to think about the amount of money, I know how much merchandise costs, and to see the amount of shirts and things that you're selling, and the cost that you were selling it for, I knew man, they're forking out a lot of money here. This is a cause they believe in. And the thing that, whenever I started Empowered Electric, a guy named Luke Owen with Owen Homes always used to say to me, hey, if you treat this like a side job, everyone will always view it like a side job. And I think that's probably true with brewing too. If you treat it like a hobby, everyone's going to kind of view you as a hobby. But when they're coming over and they're tasting amazing quality beer, they're giving to a great cause, they're going, hey, how can I be a part of this? And that ability to say, like, actually nowhere, just creates the desire to buy and support and try to come to the next event, which was probably just amazing marketing that you didn't even realize. But it worked great.
Well, the other thing that helps is Dave has an amazing memory. I don't know if that's from years of being a postman or what that is. So literally the first person that ever came to our driveway, her name was Boda, and she was the first person that showed up. She had heard about it, or she saw it on Facebook somewhere that we were doing a tasting in our driveway. So she shows up, and Dave says, "Hi, Boda," and she was like, do you know me? And he was like, well, no, I don't know you, but I know what your Facebook picture looks like. She still to this day tells everyone that story. He has this mind that can remember everything. It is amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I love that. And I love, going on with what he was saying about the amount of time. I mean, this is years in the making, years of passion, years of interest, years of desire, years of figuring out how to actually brew beer. What is good beer? And I understand that's subject to your palate, but like knowing, because it's funny, every beer I drink, and understand this, I mean, Limitless Brewing are proud sponsors of the Empowered People podcast in so much that they are fans of us and they have brought beer to share and things like that. But this isn't a paid endorsement to say, I'm not a big IPA fan, but every IPA I've drank of yours, I loved. And I'm trying to learn sours, and every sour I got. And so at that event, it was funny. Matt can attest to this. So two things. It was like a vote for your favorite beer, and there were 8 different beers. I drank every one of them, and I was like, they're all great. Like, I don't know, yes. And my wife was the exact same. I mean, she loved the Raspberry Blonde. We had it there, but I drag her to a lot of events. Like, I'm outgoing, she's more reserved, and I drag her all over the place. And honestly, like 8 out of 10 events, she is like, what am I doing here? And I'm like, well, you yelled at me if I missed bedtime, so I brought you with. You got to enjoy it. Going to your event, she absolutely loved it. We've gone to Limitless, of course, multiple times, and it's just such a fun, welcoming place. And I think that you really are onto something. And, you might not be loud and rah, 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 but it's like you are warm and welcoming, and you see someone walk in that seems unsure and you're approaching them. Like, Limitless is very approachable, and that's kind of in your slogan, right? Like, beer-centered, community-focused. Is that right?
That is right.
So talk to me about being beer-centered, community-focused. What does that mean? Because I'm constantly accused of being a fortune cookie that only speaks in taglines. But I think that there's the reason that I say so many things like that, like what if we cared more about people and less about profit? It's because I deep down believe it. And sometimes, honestly, I need to remind myself, because sometimes I want to care about profit over people. So talk about that for a second.
I mean, to me, obviously, for us to get to where we want to go, and it definitely would be putting major dollars towards a cure to mental illness.
He's also a very emotional guy. So the beer-centered piece is, right, the brewery is centered around beer. It has to be centered around beer. But the community piece for us is what it's about. We love creating the community that we are creating through Limitless. So we have people that come in. It's why we do, this is a small example, but that's why we have big tables that seat 7 or 8 people, is because I'm like, people look around and they're like, there's nowhere to sit. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Amy will share her table with you. And if she doesn't, come back to me and let me know. I'll get on Amy, because I know Amy, right? Because she's come in 17 times. And I'm like, go share your table with Amy. But that, to us, is what it's all about, is the community piece of it. What can we do to make this little part of where we live and work better? And if it's through beer, that's what we want it to be.
That makes me so extremely happy for a couple reasons. So like, I've shared in a lot of these podcasts, like I grew up in a household that was filled with massive alcohol and substance abuse issues that oftentimes led to extreme poverty, We were speaking at an alternative school a couple weeks ago, and I said, man, we were both proud and poor. What I mean is, we were so poor, we were so proud I didn't want to drink water, but I was so poor I had to drink sugarless Kool-Aid. And one of the kids was like, "Oh man, that stuff's nasty." And then I was like, "Actually, it wasn't even Kool-Aid; it was Flavor Aid." And he was like, "That's the worst." Like there was this knowing what poor is. And massive amounts of abuse. And I think in my mind, when I thought about alcohol, so I didn't drink alcohol because of what I saw growing up. I didn't drink alcohol until I was about 28 years old when I had my first beer. So luckily I bypassed the 8th grade drinking trash beer. So when I started drinking beer, the first beer I ever drank was Boulevard Wheat. So that was like my baseline. Like I've got to drink something more, like better than that. Like that's the lowest I'll go. And so I bypassed crap beer. But in my mind, I think I had this idea of like a brewery where someone just went either because they were pissed off or they were lonely or they were sorrow, and they're just going to sit by themselves at the bar and be pissed off and just drink beer. And what I just heard you say is like, that's the complete opposite. And your tagline about Limitless, refuse to be defined, is like you're changing the face of what a brewery can be. It can be a place that maybe you do go because you feel lonely or you feel sorry, but you're not going to sit there and drink and get more pissed or more lonely or more angry. You're actually going to drink and maybe loosen up to open up to a person right there that can listen to you and see you as a person. And I just think that's beautiful. And I think that makes the world a better place for someone to go and get a little buzzed and they don't get angry, right? Like the angry drunk persona. What if it was like the healing that could take place there?
I like
would
that.
be, well, that's your tagline.
Yeah.
Well,
I like the healing thing. I think we could do something with that, Dave.
But so, yeah, as a kid that grew up in an alcoholic, I wish my stepdad would have came to Limitless. I wish my mom would have went there and you'd have been like, "Hey, Debbie, let's talk," And I think that's what's funny is, right, that's not profitable. In air quotes, like that money, like ching ching, that's not profitable. But like as you rock that shirt, people over profit. And why I think that we resonate so well together is like, yeah, we gotta make money to keep the doors open, to keep the lights on, to keep those freaking brewers going. Like we gotta make money. But like, we're not going to do that by doing a subpar quality or being a crappy place. Cause like one thing I shared before we started interviewing was I'm almost against this like buy local, support small business, like kind of aura that goes around, because like so many people, it's like they read Simon Sinek, his book Start With Why, and so they're like, oh, I can just make a crappy product as long as I have a good story to tell. And it's like, I can overprice a crappy product as long as I have a good story to tell. And it's like, no, that's not at all what it means. That's not what you're doing. You're making great beer. It's funny that I drink these and I'm like, these are great, and I've never had Dave be like, we've raved about like, this beer is amazing, and you're like, we could do better. And I'm like, what? Like, this is the best beer I've ever tasted. And you're like, well, and so I feel like your level of quality is so much higher, which blows me away that you can't just like pat yourself on the back and get excited. But you should. And everyone should, if you're in the Kansas City area, be sure to go check out Limitless. Plug for that. So where do you see Limitless going? Do you see it getting sold at Hy-Vees and Price Choppers? Do you see the next, craft blogger coming to your space? Like what are some things that you dream about at night?
So I think I hate the term giving back, right? Because I haven't taken anything, but that's me. So I hate the word giving back. I'm trying to come up with a better word for that. But for us, it's improving our community. What can we do to improve the community? And one thing that we do is we partner with a company on a beer, and then that is our Perseverance and Faith Series beers. So we've done 2 so far. One was a coffee stout with Maps Coffee. That's our neighbor in Lenexa. And then the other one was the People Over Profit, which is a strawberry saison, which we partner with Empowered on. And so what we do for that beer is 100% of the profit of that beer goes to a nonprofit in our community. And we do that because it's part of our mission. That's who we want to be. we are not in this to be millionaires. We are not in this to have it on every shelf in Hy-Vee. That is not what it's about. We will distribute a little bit, but we want to make sure that our quality can stay up with the beer. So we see ourselves, we're actually going to start making a house name beer for Old Shawnee Pizza. So we're going to make their tap beer that's named for them. Like, that's the only place that's going to get it. And so we're excited about that.
And your tap room, or not even at your tap room?
We'll probably have it on at our tap room too.
Yeah,
but it'll be at all 3 of his locations. One's right down the street. Repeal.
Ooh, Repeal on 18th.
Yeah, he just opened a kitchen in there.
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
I was there before. I mean, it's kind of opened a couple times, but yeah, we're definitely going to. I would love for you to make that connection because we'd love to talk to those people.
Yeah. Will.
Yeah, we definitely.
Which is another, I mean, it's just a whole community connection, right? Because Dave's family has been going to Old Shawnee Pizza literally since 1983 every Saturday night. At least his parents still go once a week. And it's like, Will's like, I know you. And Dave's like, yeah, we bring in our own Tupperware. You can fill up the salad bowl for us. So there was a connection there already from the community piece. So we're really excited about that. But we really see ourselves staying pretty local with it. If we were to get one tap on every bar within 5 miles of our location, we could do great things for the community. It's not about being statewide or countrywide or being a huge regional brewery for us. It's what's the difference we can make right here in our own backyard.
Yeah, I think I do. I would love, I don't know if I can just try to blow some wind in that sail. I would love, there's I think I've told you about them, Underdog Wine Co. They're a small little 2-store wine and craft beer location. They have Union Hill and Crestwood. But they're really cool people. Kind of probably a very similar story, but it's like that's those types of places, not Bubbles, not Gomers. Like that's not where you need to be. You need to be in like those little places, like not trying to diss on Gomers or Bubbles, but I'm just saying like those local people that are also trying to give back to the community and do things like that. I just think it's extremely neat. So what do you think, to the young entrepreneur? What do you think some of the things that you wish you would have known before you would have started construction and the build out? Because of course the hard part is, right, like you're starting to master brewing beer, right? And you get the brewmaster from Liverpool. Like you kind of have that understood. And then it's like, okay, now we're going to have to spend $200,000 to turn a warehouse into a place that people want to come. Go.
It basically, like having the father I had allowed me the capability to get to where I am now. Most of the time from 23 together, I had 2 jobs and was able, to put money away to buy the house, to get the 6-year arm, to know that we're going to sell it in 2 years, to have enough faith that things were going to happen, but not too crazy that we were ever going to lose everything. And we were able to leverage this to build up the capital because we never wanted to have investors in our company because we didn't want to work for someone else. And with the nonprofit ideas, no one's probably that big of an angel anyway. And just because I'm a control freak too.
Very true.
Which would also limit our growth of I want to be in control. Eventually I'd like someone to take some of it, but it's hard. And I talking Emily and Steve and Darren, and knowing what we put on the line, making sure hey, we've got to work this hard because someone else is working harder than us, and let's not lose what we've already built.
I think for me, if I could tell somebody, people say, oh, you work all the time. That's an understatement. It's a complete understatement. Dave has been at the brewery 7 days a week, at a minimum 12 hours a day since June 21st. He has not taken a day off. He has not. So I think for me, it's hard work, but it's not just, oh yeah, I got to go over there after work. It is all out every day, everything you have. He's trying to serve me beer in his sleep. Like, here's your beer. Like, literally. I wish I would have videotaped it because it was amazing. Would have been the best social media post ever.
It would have been.
He's literally trying to he's never talked in his sleep in 20 years, ever. But I think it's hard work, and it is not just, I mean, I think people say, yeah, I work hard, but they have no clue. But you have to be able to put that in. You have to be willing to give up things to get where you want to go. You've got to. Otherwise, it would never work.
Yeah, I mean, like, knowing you, and like one time on Instagram, you're like, wow, I thought no one else would be working on a Saturday night. And it's like, I know physically, and you're able to see it. Like, people that are successful, you got to put in the work and you got to be patient, because I think, I mean, this was 3 years in the making, like planning and like laying the groundwork. And had we not done the due diligence, like when 7 banks tell you no and 8, says yes. And then, I mean, prior to like not wanting to go, and Emily and Darren were doing the bank talking, because it's like, I'm going to get too emotional. They're going to say no. I'm going to flip. We're going to get screwed. And then saying like, come on, Em, you got to do this better. You got to do this better. And like one of our most heated up argument was like over this loan. Like, we've got to do this. Like, someone else is going to do it. We're going to be so pissed off because we've done the time. And like, rah, rah, rah. And, and then like when she did it, like, just so how much joy it brought.
Yeah, no, we can tell it's definitely been a team effort. I mean, it's something that you guys have both poured a ton into, and everybody that has come in contact with it loves it. Even just the ping pong table. So I feel like there's this constant theme of your guys' life of just kind of like not a fearless sprint, but just a fearless pushing on. Like, well, let's open the doors and serve beer. Oh, well, let's go do this. And it just kind of constantly, and even like as I'm thinking about, I feel like most breweries would be like, no, you can't come back and see where we're brewing because there's liability. And you're like, actually, we're going to put 2 ping pong tables and tables. Come on back, kids. And there's just this like, there's this lack of fear, and there's this like overall like community like welcoming in that's just so beautiful. And honestly, it was a great moment. I mean, we had not. So Matt talks a lot of smack, and he had been talking smack about ping pong over and over and over again. And it was back in the brewery area that I just destroyed him the first time we played ping pong. I think actually 5 games in a row. Like, once would have been luck, twice would have been, maybe. But 5 games in a row, it was pretty rough. And like,
dude, let's go right now.
But I mean, just talk about that a little bit. I mean, is there anything, I mean, because I know that you've done like yoga back there, and I mean, are people drinking beer and stretching at the same time? Is that what happens?
No, it's beer after yoga.
Oh, okay.
Yoga first, then beer. I think one thing is we're not afraid to fail, and I don't mean like fail as a business. I mean, throw it out there, try it. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. You don't do it again. Like, that's how it works. Like, but don't be afraid just to put something out there and see what the interest is. I think sometimes he'll come home and be like, we're going to do this. Put it on Facebook right now. I'll be like, all right, that sounds great. And you never know what the response is going to be. But if you hold back and you think about it, then you're never going to try anything outside of the box. And so our friend, Mary Ann, she still has her small business where she goes around the country. And she goes, man, I'm so jealous of your guys' Instagram posts. You're constantly doing it. Like, how do you do it? I mean, you take the 3 minutes and you put the post out there. You know what? You can delete it later if you decide you don't like it. But it's just, you got to keep push.
Yeah, I think I've heard a quote that a true entrepreneur is someone who can run from failure to failure and not lose enthusiasm. And I think, that's almost even what you're talking about with the bank, which, I was in a different kind of situation where I had 5 weeks paid vacation. And I was like, well, I have 5 weeks to sell some jobs and start making a paycheck. I didn't have to invest in the equipment that you did and things like that. So there's different, levels of entrepreneur investment early on. But of course, going back once again to the merchandise that you did, that you gave away all the profits for, all the free beer that you gave away. I mean, all the hours that you spent on it. I mean, it's so funny, like when you guys are talking about like you learn in business class, like this is what you do to make a product. And it's like, I was an electrician for 12 years before I started a company, like, you know, but and thinking that you're going to be able to just turn on that switch and be like, well, now I'm going to work 12 hours a day. You better like have something that's bigger than just money or you're going to fold.
You got to have the passion for it because it's, yeah, you're right. It's not going to work if it's just a product. And you're like, yep, I work 8 to 5 and I make this widget and I sell it. Like, it's got to be something that you believe in. And I think for us, it goes back to the community piece of it. We love beer. We love what it brings. But you also have to add that community piece to it because that's what pushes us.
Have you ever had someone, sorry, because I've actually spent a lot of money with a company recently. I'm not going to name them because I am a fan of them, like what they're doing. But like their customer service sucks so horribly. Almost to the point to where I just want to put them on blast. It's so impersonal. It's very like, we're not going to give you our phone number because we don't want to talk to you. Just email us, you know, which I understand is more efficient, but it's like, come on. And I mean, I'm literally saying like, I literally have spent like $16,000 with them and like, they won't even respond. And it's like, that's a crazy amount of money for me. Have you ever had someone that like tasted a beer and was like, this is gross?
Yeah, and we'll take it back. Switch it out because we want customers to be their lifetime. We always say if that person constantly comes in and they stop coming in, we've done something wrong. If they haven't said they moved away. I mean, there's a lot of people that come in and say, hey, Dave, and I'm like, I've never met you before, and it's really neat that you know my name, that you just go like through all the posting on Instagram and Facebook, and you can't look at likes because there's so many people that look and will release a beer. It's like, well, that got 40 on Instagram. Well, there's way more than 40 people know about, and the only place we ever put this beer was coming out was on Instagram. And it's just putting in the long hours of, I guess, just on everything. I mean, it's like trying to think and not being afraid to fail at things. I hope in April we have this kids Easter egg hunt. I hope 500 kids show up for it. Like,
a lot of eggs to stuff.
Right. Like we just shoot for the stars and like want to do it to see it. Like when we hand out free jerk chicken, people like raving about the jerk chicken. Like this is better than any restaurant. Like this is free. Like, yeah, it's absolutely free. And like other things we've
We'll
done.
talk about your grand opening, right? Because, like, I was out of town, which was devastating. Of course, I wanted to be there. And I'm like, not going to lie, deep down, I'm like, what if only 8 people show up? Oh, gosh, you know, I'm so nervous. Like, it's so funny that I'm, like, calling to check in. I'm in Detroit with family, and I'm, like, nervous for you because I want to see, I think you're great people, and I want to see you succeed. And I think me and Matt somehow got word that literally, like, what was the turnout like?
It was well over what we ever possibly would have expected. Obviously, like we weren't never having opened up a brewery and gone to somewhat openings, and we knew we were only gonna have 3 beers on tap because our equipment showed up late, and we were bound and determined to open up on the 21st because we said on August 2nd we were opening up on, was it 20th or the 21st?
Right before Thanksgiving,
yeah,
right?
the day before Thanksgiving. And it was a family tradition that we went on that night. And we're like, we're going to open up this 3/4 family business on that night, come hell or high water. And when the line and all that, it was
crazy. I mean, we never expected that because it's not like we have $1 million marketing budget or anything like that. It's everything we've done is through social media and word of mouth. That's everything we've done. So it was crazy for us to be like, oh, wow, okay, people just keep coming. Like your eyes get kind of big. Like, this is real. This is really happening right now. So it was crazy for us.
Listen, which I hope she doesn't listen to this podcast because she's an amazing friend, but we went to, it was a Christmas party with a lawyer that this Christmas party was probably, honestly, over $100,000. They had shrimp that were the size of your hand. I kid you not. It was the most amazing food. And we were there for about 35 minutes, and we were like, hey, why don't we bail and go to Limitless? And we literally bailed and came to your guys' space, which from my house is like a 35-minute drive. Matt, how many bars do you pass to go to Limitless?
No idea, because I only go to Limitless.
I mean, but you know what I mean? You drive by so many places and it's like, no. Like, and you might have similar beer. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. So, I mean, there's a lot of places that have similar beers, but it's like, I want to go there. I want to support what you guys are doing. I just think those taglines, they're not cliche. They're not fake. Refusing to be defined, I think is just, it's so, personal. It's beautiful. Such big fans of you guys. Anything else that you guys want to kind of talk about as we just wrap this up?
There was just one thing that I wanted to add on what he said. I think that when he was like, I'm going to quit my job, we're going to open a brewery. I'm like, okay. But I think it comes down to the driver. Like Darren and I used to joke that if Dave wasn't driving it, we would still be writing the business plan right now. Because he's like, let's get together. It's Wednesday, it's Thursday, it's Friday. Let's get together. Let's work on it. And every time we got failed at a bank, we okay, what do we need to change? But I think that I think you have to have belief in the person that you're opening a business with as well, because if it were anybody else, I didn't know who he was inside and out, and he said, I'm going to quit my job, I would have been like, oh, I don't know about that. But overall, I know how he is. So people are like, what made you do that? And I'm like, well, because I know who he is down inside, and I know that he would never, ever, ever stop. So those people like, don't you miss him? Like, don't you guys want to go on a date night? Yeah, we do, but we also want to make this successful. And so I think that is something that you have to have. As a new entrepreneur, you have to have belief in the people that you're working with. Otherwise, it's not going to work.
It's so funny that you say that. Sorry.
No, it's just something, it's magical. Like when we thought the opening day, we're like, wow, this is so many people. And we're like so understaffed because we had never done it before. Now what one person could do at that day would have took 4. I mean, I literally don't think I took my head out of the dishwasher, it seemed like. And then people were coming in and basically getting one beer and we're like, oh man, we left so much on the table. I hope this isn't our best night ever, because like, this isn't very good. People are like, you must have made $10,000. Like, no, we didn't make anywhere near that. And like, we, for our bills and for our future growth plans and all that stuff, like we need to, make drastically more than our opening night. And then now to see like almost every Saturday we top the Saturday before, which is way over. And like how the people, Emily, Darren, Steve, have grown, like how by forcing yourself into uncomfortable situations, like it now becomes a new norm. What used to take you thinking a crazy amount of people to do that work, you can then do the double work if you're willing to put in the time. And Steve, Emily, Darren all have daytime jobs, and it's like it's amazing. Like the biggest piece of advice was like, if you want to do it, there's obviously ways not to work this much, but it's like if someone was to take this company away from me, and I could have done maybe one more hour worth of work, it'd be devastating to like own that loss, because like you chose sleep, you chose vacation. Because prior to this at the post office, I knew at age 40 I wanted out. I didn't know what that direction was going to be at mid-20s or whatever, I guess 30, whatever. But it's like, I'm not going to take vacation for a year. I'm going to build up 50 days. And then when I leave, I'm going to have all this sick time and I'm going to get paid. Granted, how it played out wasn't ideal with the loss of my brother, but I like putting in that time for that future goal years in advance. There's obviously other ways to do it, but for us,
there's easier ways, but I don't think that there's more satisfying ways.
It's lots of hard work. It's lots of not seeing each other, but then when you see each other, and like what used to a conversation that'd be at 9:00 is now from 12 to 1. I think our time together now, it's more valuable and it's probably better quality time. Like most of the time we're not on the phone or anything. It's like, let's have an actual conversation about something that we're both vested in.
You two are extremely beautiful people. I mean, I just gotta say that. I mean, I'm so glad our paths crossed. And I wish there were more business owners like you. And I hope this podcast shines a light not only on that, but also just kind of like you said, like refuse to be defined. Like you think of who you think of as a bar owner. I mean, to be honest, I remember there's a guy that I spoke about a lot in the podcast who, he traces back a lot of his childhood, drama when his mom owned a bar and just kind of the bad that came from it. And just what you explain and what you are building and your motivations are just nothing like that. So just if people can, when they look at people, don't write in your story of who you think they are or what they are or why they're doing what they're doing. But let them tell the story, ask the questions, have the conversations, listen, do the research like you're talking about before you interview the people and you're looking at everything possible on their LinkedIn, which Matt's into LinkedIn right now. Bombard him with sales scams and all sorts of pyramid schemes. But I mean, I just think that your heart to give back to the community and to, do a great service, do a great, quality product. It's just awesome. I mean, it's inspiring to me, and it's so funny to me, once again, like as I talk about building a construction company, when you talk about working harder than ever, it's funny, when we sat down and interviewed my wife on Valentine's Day, she was like, yeah, it was weird. Like you quit on Friday, and literally Monday when I woke up, you were gone at 6. Like I was out like hunting, like looking for work. Like I got 5 weeks to find a job. So like whether it's, officing at a coffee shop and just guessing people's emails, which I there's a trick to that. Guessing people's emails.
We are good at that as well.
Yeah. I will find your email. And then
we'll try 10 versions of it, and one of them is going to work.
That is hilarious you say that, because I would just
the other ones aren't getting through, so what does it matter if you email?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, that is hilarious. You do that. And then when they respond, you got that cell phone number on the signature. Uh-oh, I'm coming for you, people. Yeah, no, it's fun. And you know where I learned that from was watching, so I learned that from a good friend that worked for the Kansas City Chiefs, but then that calling and asking for like, hey, I was calling for the head of sales or, the VP of operations, things like that was, The Pursuit of Happiness with Will Smith, where he just like saw the list of people to call and he's like, VP, I'm going to call that guy. And like calls him and gets in front of him and doesn't get his business, but meets all those other people. And so it was like, I was always swinging for up here and then capturing all these people down here. So yeah, it's just funny. Like you wouldn't realize that there's no substitute for failure. And like, you're going to make beers that suck. You're going to make beers that you have to throw away. And like, I remember starting Empowered Electric, I remember like, I honestly had like never failed an inspection ever, like in wall, above ceiling, anything. And like, I started Empowered Electric and it was like fail. And I remember being like, oh my gosh, am I such a loser? Well, no, it's just, I'm running a little faster than my capacity, but that's where growth happens. That's where like you learn to be more efficient. And yeah, now one person can serve 16 people, where on opening night it was 16 people to serve one. It was horrible. And it's like, if you're not willing to kind of step into that realm of being uncomfortable, you're never going to make any progress. So I'm definitely thankful that you did that. I mean, I think that's a bold move. I think there's, some backstory about the post office. 'Cause I don't feel like you worked there for just a couple days and they didn't know your name. But it's like, I think every great hero story starts with a little bit of dissatisfaction. I'm
in HR. That's my day job. And so I'll never forget the day he came home and he was like, well, I had my review today. I was Route 42 and it was in the hallway. And they were like, oh, your attendance. He's like, no, I haven't missed a day. I have not missed an unscheduled day. And they were like, well, they couldn't find him because they were looking at the wrong name. They were looking for Mosley. And he's like, that's not my last name, so that's why you can't find me. Like, and I remember that kind of being the turning point of him saying, I am done with this.
Yeah. No, so, unless you want, well, I guess if you want more great breweries to open up in your location, refer to people by the wrong name and by their route number, and you will have great beer coming to your town in 6 years. So, but guys, thanks a ton for making this time. I know that, you haven't even scheduled a date night yet. You've made time for this podcast. So if you were going to say anything, just closing remarks, what would you like to say to the audience, to us, to get off your chest?
I think that you kind of the refuse to be defined when you were describing that. I think that that talks a lot about who we are, right? So that's how the name Limitless even came about, was because people put limits on you, and then in turn you put limits on yourself. You listen to what other people say about you. You listen to what other people think that you're good at, what you can excel at. It's not the truth. You can step outside of who people think you are. So be limitless, be yourself, be who you are, and you can go so much further than when you fit inside someone else's box.
So good. Dave, you got anything?
I guess just never be afraid for no. I mean, it just went back to our blog days when we would just throw things out, and if someone would say no, it's like, I really want the no to happen as soon as possible. That's like with the events and things like that. Like, let's just see if it failed. And did it fail because it was a dumb idea, or is it too early for us to attempt to do this? So, and then you can go and figure that out. I mean, I guess that's one thing that we live at the brewery. And like, we hope as of now, we haven't dumped any beer. We want, and like constantly trying to talk to Mike about it, is like, let's fail big if we're going to try something to be different, like to set ourselves apart. Because to barely fail or make something mediocre it's just not exciting. It's like, let's just really fail and go, well, we can't do it, but we attempted. Like barely sticking your toe in the water or plunging in. Because I think those are more satisfying. Like, well, if something happened, like I could have done a little bit more. Like, no, just try and push as hard as you can and hope you get the result you wanted. If not, regroup.
So what's so funny is you hear these stories. You would never think like Dave and Emily, they're like Thomas Edison. But literally Thomas Edison, the famous quote where he's trying to create the light bulb, and it literally blows up like 9,000 times. And each and every time he would like record it and say, well, we know one more way not to create a light bulb. And it was just that idea of like every failure leads you one step closer to the ultimate goal of what you're trying to do. And I honestly think anyone who puts limits on you guys is crazy. I'm super thankful to have met you. I think you're beautiful people. Now, let's just wrap up and say the way that you guys can support Dave and Emily and Limitless and the work they're trying to do, which is beautiful and amazing, is go to their Lenexa location, which is at what's the address?
9765 Widmer.
We're putting that in the show notes, guys. It's going to feel a little bit like a broke down Kmart in an alley like they described. It's an industrial area, but it's amazing. And also you can buy, like they said, you can buy 4-packs. They have cans with stickers that fit the cans way better. My only criticism ever of Limitless was the stickers were a little bit too big.
Compared.
Yeah, this one right here.
Yeah,
it's got a little bit of a lip.
Yeah.
They've since corrected
I failed
that.
at the first rendition of labels.
And be sure to pick up, even if it's just one 4-pack, the Faith and Perseverance series. All the profits go to Johnson County Suicide Prevention. If you live long enough, I know that I've experienced it, and probably many of the listeners have. Suicide and mental health is something that sucks, and honestly is not talked about or dealt with or talked about until it's too late. Organizations like Limitless and Johnson County Suicide Prevention and a lot of others are trying to stop that, and they're trying to change the conversation from one of like, oh, what's wrong with you? Just man up, to one of like, hey, let's talk about it. Let's support healing and health. So be sure, please go down there. If I was going to buy one, I would buy the People Over Profit. Because it is amazing. So anyways, guys, thanks a ton for listening this week. We hope this was beneficial. Talk to you guys next Thursday. Peace.